Hello everyone, my name is Amy Rose. As some of you may know, I like to make neckties as well as wear neckties. Over the last 6 years I've made a lot of ties, and I thought it would be a really cool idea to make a necktie out of materials that I already have and that are unconventional. So for this video, I'm gonna make a necktie completely out of lace. I have some lace trims as well as some lace fabric that I want to use for this project. I know watching someone sew isn't always the most interesting, but I thought it'd be cool to show my process and my inner thoughts as I sew, just because it's something that I've never really shown before. When I'm done making the tie, I'm going to rate it on a few different scales. So first of all, how easy it was to sew. Secondly, how easy it is to tie. So I'm going to test it with a simpler knot, like a 4-in-hand or a Windsor, as well as a more complicated knot. And then lastly, I'm going to rate it on how practical it is to wear, and then think of some places that I could possibly wear the tie or different occasions I could wear it for. Just to show what I'm going to be using, this is one of the lace fabrics that I'll be using. This is the second lace fabric that I will be using. And then I have this huge bag of all of these vintage trims. So let's get started. The first thing I did is I detangled all of these trims. These are my pattern pieces that I've had for the last 6 years. They're a little beat up, but they still get the job done. The benefit of the lace being see-through is it made it really easy to cut out the pattern pieces. What I plan to do with the 2 lace fabrics is to sandwich them together to give it more of a layered look, in hopes that it would give the tie more structure. Fun fact about neckties is they're always cut on the diagonal of the fabric, which is called the bias. The reason for this is that part of the fabric has the most amount of stretch. I didn't record myself cutting out every single piece of fabric just because I had about 14 pattern pieces to cut out. Here I'm cutting out the interfacing that's going inside the tie. This helps to give it structure. The interfacing I'm using is similar to felt, and I like to use it in all my neckties since it's very easy to work with. My dog Rocco was curious what I was doing, so I let him sit on my lap for a bit while I was sewing. I played around with this longer than I'd like to admit, but I decided to do a diagonal stripe-like pattern down the front of the tie. And here I'm pinning it like crazy so it doesn't shift around. I'm in love with how this looks when you hold it up to the light. It looks so pretty. I had to add this last piece of trim on top of the seam just to hide it, and to give it a better transition from the lace part to the trim part of the tie. And this is how it looks after I've sewn all the main pieces together. Now I'm cutting out the back pieces of the tie. For reference, it's these pieces right here. I'm using this wide eyelet lace trim. I thought this fabric worked out the best since it fit both of the pattern pieces. I used this lace underneath just because the holes were so big in the trim, I didn't want the interfacing poking through. This is after I've sewn the back pieces onto the tie. After I'm done sewing, I always turn it right side out to make sure everything's laying correctly. If I'm happy with how it looks, I go ahead and trim the seams down on the inside. This for me is the fun part. This is when the tie starts to take shape. I used my iron on a lower setting since I didn't know what the fiber content of all the trims were. Last thing I want to do is burn a hole in my tie after doing all this work. Once I had the tie pressed, I put the interfacing in and then I started pinning the tie together. This little piece of lace I'm putting on the back of the tie as the little loop to hold the tail in place. And this is the final step of assembling the tie, is just doing all the hand stitching on the back of it. I always start at the end of the tie and work my way to the front of the tie. I would say on average it takes me about 45 minutes to do this part. And finally, here's the finished tie. I know you want to use your voice too. Rocco was craving some attention, so I figured I'd let him sit up here on the table and hang out with me. So my tie is finally done. I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. So we're gonna go over the 3 things that I mentioned that I'm going to be braiding the tie on. I'd say overall this tie was very easy to put together. The only issue I had when actually sewing on my machine is once in a while the lace would get caught inside the machine and I would have to stop and obviously carefully pull it out without tearing the lace. In my opinion, one of the most annoying parts was just having to cut out the same pattern pieces twice since I was doing a double layer of that lace. So that took a little longer than normal. It took twice as long as it would normally if I was doing just a normal tie. When it came to sewing the trims on top of the tie, I was really nervous about being that everything has so many holes in it and with the netting and everything. The last thing I was worried about when sewing this tie is doing the hand stitching on the back of the tie. I made sure to do extra stitching because of the fact that it was lace and it's so thin, it's just a netting, and I made sure to really sew it into the interfacing as well to make sure it wasn't going to fall apart. For the score I'd give this tie on how easy it was to sew, I'd give it a 4 out of 5. Next is tieability. I don't think tieability is actually a word, but I'm going to use that because I think it sounds cool. So how easy was this to tie? So I first tried it with a Windsor. That's actually the knot I'm wearing currently. And the tie, I would say it holds really well. That's the one thing I noticed is once the tie is tied, the knot holds. Because I've had it with certain fabrics where it's so slippery, it just feels like the knot's gonna come undone. I find that this tie ended up being pretty thick with the interfacing and everything. I did try a 4-in-hand with this knot since it does take up a little less fabric than a thick Windsor like this one. I feel like for how fancy this tie looks and the style of it, it just looks better with a more symmetrical knot. For the intricate knot, I did an Eldridge, and I found that that was a little difficult to do. So this tie, I was planning on making it a regular length tie. It ended up being more of a long tie. It gained a few inches, but it actually works out well for doing these kind of fancier knots because you need more length, especially when it is a thicker tie as well. The other thing I was worried about when tying is because it is lace, is just the resistance, and because it's more delicate, I was just afraid I was going to wreck the tie, but I was very careful about it, and I think as long as you're doing a simple knot with this type of tie, it's okay. You just have to baby your tie, but I feel like in general you should be babying your ties because you want to make sure you keep the longevity of them. So the rating I gave this tie on ease of tying was a 3 out of 5. Last rating I'm going to do is practicality. How practical is this tie to wear out? Now, I can't see myself wearing this to an office job or like a casual hangout with friends. It's not probably the most appropriate. Just because it's white, I'd be afraid to get it dirty, so I would definitely want to save it for more of a special occasion. I was thinking this tie might be great for someone's wedding, if it kind of fit their theme. Like I could see a groom wear it. Even if you went out to like a fancy event of some kind, where you know you're only going to be wearing it for a couple hours, I mean, you could probably wear it all day. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it also gave me a little bit of spring vibes with some of these trims on here. So I did pair it with my little bee pin that I made, collar lapel pin that I made. And I think the gold complements well with some of the more creamy, warmer colors that are in this tie. Overall, what I decided to rate this for practicality was 2.5 out of 5. I kind of wanted to give it a higher score, but it's just really not the most versatile tie. You can only wear it. Yes, I feel like you can wear it with a lot of different outfits. Just so you don't risk getting it dirty, I wouldn't wear it as an everyday tie. So what does everyone think? Would you wear this tie? Let me know down in the comments. Or if you know of any other places I could wear this to, because I definitely plan to wear this at some point out. I was also thinking if I don't get too attached to this tie, I would put it up on my Etsy. But also, let me know down in the comments how much you think I would sell this tie for. I don't know exactly how many hours I put into this, but I'll put it on the screen when I actually calculate it. Right, Rocco? Hope everyone has a good day, and I'll see you in the next video. We'll make you a tie next, maybe. What do you think? Yeah?